I'm just trying to set the expectation on where we are right now. The tape is being dominated by algorithms, high-frequency traders, and look no further than NVIDIA today. NVIDIA is seeing massive volume in zero-dated options, and it's the reason why NVIDIA is lower and the market's pulling back.
Okay, so if a month ago your primary reason for being concerned about part of the market, mega cap, was extreme valuations, okay? A month ago, NVIDIA's forward PE was 41 times. Today, it's 32.5. A month ago, Meta was at 24.5 times. Today, it's 21.5. Apple was 32. Today, it's 29. Amazon was 38. Today, it's 31. Alphabet was 23.5. Today, it's 19.5. Microsoft was 35. Today, it's 30. I guess my point is that, you know, these stocks have come down a lot. Are, Jimmy, the valuations now more reasonable if they were unreasonable before? Barclays today upgrades tech. They go to overweight, and that's following this big pullback since July of some 16%. Rob Sechin yesterday came on, said he bought NVIDIA finally for the first time because the stock had pulled back so much. So what do I do with this valuation correction? As we, I think, should accurately call it.
Well, I think Rob is a great example here, Rob Sechin, right? Buying. And I didn't quite hear everything he said yesterday, but I think he said, look, of course it can go lower from here. But if you look past the next month, and this is what I was saying a second ago, and you look to the end of the year, these valuations and these share prices are likely to be higher, and there's a very simple reason why. We can't just look at multiples in a vacuum. You have to put the multiples up against the growth rate of earnings per share. Carrie, I see you as a growth investor nodding your head. You know exactly where I'm going with this. The PEG ratio matters, price earnings to growth ratio. And if you look at NVIDIA as maybe the stock that is most talked about in terms of is it overvalued, it's got a PEG ratio below 1. It's growing its earnings per share in the mid-30s, and it's got a 32 times multiple going forward. For anyone who knows PEG ratios, that's an incredibly attractive valuation. Doesn't mean it can't go lower. You know it, Scott. I know it. But I do think that from here to year end, you'll see a new all-time high on NVIDIA.
But are there other signs of things going too far the other way? I look at, for example, Micron today. We can throw up the Micron chart. They're going to resume their buyback. Are they doing it because the stock is down 30-some-odd% in part over the last month? Is it more attractive now? Did it overcorrect? That's for you to decide, not me. But nonetheless, it raises that question. Adam Parker, he's a former chip analyst, by the way, at Bernstein before he had moved on to other gigs on the street. He was with me yesterday on Closing Bell. So he knows the space really, really well. And he said, well, there's been a lot of destruction. I want you to listen to what he said in the chip space and whether it's attractive now.
I looked at the last 10 downturns of 10% or more over the last 25 years. I looked at which stocks normally go down, which industries normally go down, and I said, okay, what's happened this past cycle since July 16th? And I sorted by biggest differential, and the semis are down, the semi-cap equipment are down more than they usually would be relative to everything else.
Okay, so Joe, I'll go to you. Attractive buys?
Yes.
Or not?
Again, Adam's spot on, usually is. I look at the semi-equipment names. If we're studying valuation, we're trying to find lower valuation semis. Look at the equipment names, KLA Corp, Lam Research, Applied Materials. They've all worked off significant, excessive, I would say, positioning, extreme bullishness, but yet they have strong fundamentals in place. And what do they also have? You mentioned it. They have buyback authorizations. And we're coming into a period where we're going to reopen that buyback window. I'm not saying that's going to be the ultimate catalyst that's going to drive a significant appreciation, but it certainly offers some support in idiosyncratic cases for equities that you find it compelling.
Let me quickly add to this, because this is important. I was talking about the PEG ratio earlier and growth rate and earnings per share. What if the growth rate is wrong? I think you get a lot of comfort that the growth rates are right by looking at what the CapEx expenditure plans were from the likes of Google and Meta. And you know they need chips to build out what they're doing in AI, whether it's NVIDIA's chips or Micron's high bandwidth memory chips. And they have the cash flow to do it. They have the cash flow to do it. They're not doing it by raising debt or something that's going to get upset by market turmoil. They're thinking years ahead. So the fundamentals support those growth rates.
I mean, I'm looking at, speaking of chips, so over the last month, NVIDIA's down 18%. Carrie, your Broadcom's down almost 16%.
Right.
You know, you've had a nice bounce back for some things like AMD, which you had a call on today, reiterated top pick at Piper, which Joe owns. But what about this notion that chips overcorrected?
Yeah, so I think one way I would look at it, and we have been looking at it, if you look at the charts of a number of these, and I'll give you as examples ASML and Broadcom. Both of them right now are sitting on an important moving average. The 200-day for ASML, the 100-day for Broadcom. Micron is still in a dive that's going straight down. You don't have a sense of where it's going to hold. But I think if you watch these stocks over the next couple of days and nibble at them, if you don't own them, you can and see established sort of levels of support, you can continue to buy more. I also think that it's true. You add up the capex that you presume that the big companies like Google, Apple, Amazon are spending on chips. You've got $200 billion easy across the board of the big cap names. And that has to go to somebody. So it's the chip makers, and mostly NVIDIA, but not just NVIDIA, and then the equipment makers.
All right, so today NVIDIA's price action is very much due to what's happening with the rest of the market, and I will touch on that in just a moment. First, though, I want to talk about NVIDIA specifically. So not too long ago, the information published an article saying that NVIDIA's newest chip Blackwell is delayed. We did not know if that article was true or not, and an NVIDIA spokesperson reportedly said that Blackwell production is prepared to ramp in the second half of this year. Then last night, Supermicro reported earnings. Supermicro's CEO said that they may see some Blackwell chips in the fourth quarter of this year, but they do not expect to see substantial volume from Blackwell until Q1 of 2025. So that may be our answer for now about a potential delay. Now I want to be clear about something. I am bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA, especially as more hyperscalers like Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon all increase their capex spending by billions of dollars. And honestly, I don't think this situation with Blackwell will negatively affect NVIDIA, because even if Blackwell is delayed, the demand for NVIDIA chips is so great right now, and NVIDIA can just sell more H100 GPUs in the interim. So again, a delay in Blackwell does not really concern me regarding the long-term future of NVIDIA. Now I want to talk about what's happening in the rest of the market today, because it is directly impacting NVIDIA's price action. So today's stocks opened higher after the Bank of Japan pledged to not raise interest rates anymore for now because of market volatility being so high. Essentially, they don't want to raise interest rates and cause a global market sell-off due to the unwinding of the carry trade in the Japanese yen. In case you're unfamiliar with the carry trade, I will give a very brief and simplified summary of the situation very quickly. In short, Japan has been fighting deflation for many years while the rest of the world has been dealing with inflation. The Bank of Japan has kept interest rates very low for a long time, even as other central banks around the world raised interest rates. And so many market participants have been borrowing cheap low-interest money from Japan and then using that money to buy U.S. assets, such as U.S. stocks. However, Japan is finally seeing inflation, and so they finally started to raise interest rates. This caused global markets to sell off and panic because market participants were scared that their source of cheap, low-interest cash was going away. Also, the yen was increasing in price, which caused even more problems for those who borrowed money from the Bank of Japan. So in light of that panic and global market selling off, the Bank of Japan pledged not to raise interest rates in such volatile market conditions. So that caused markets to gap up on smaller time frames and open higher this morning. We started selling off slightly as the day went on, and then markets really started selling off in the early afternoon. Why? The Middle East. I was honestly surprised by how few people were talking about this on social media when it was happening. I'm not going to go into details about the situation because that is not what this channel covers, but you can read these two alerts that came out today. Shortly after these two pieces of news broke, the markets really started selling off and closed that gap that had formed this morning. As I said in yesterday's video, for right now, NVIDIA's price action will be dictated by what happens with the rest of the market. Right now, we're dealing with fears of recession, worries that the Fed has waited too long to cut interest rates, unwinding of the carry trade in the Japanese yen if and when the Bank of Japan decides to raise rates again, concerns about the Middle East. We're in August, which is historically a low volume and volatile month. And on top of all of that, we are in an election year. So all of this is affecting NVIDIA's price right now. As I said in yesterday's video, I'm not even going to try and guess where NVIDIA will move in the short term because it really does depend on what happens in the rest of the market, and there are so many unknowns on the horizon right now. So with everything happening right now, I hope that you are all staying calm amidst this market volatility, and I hope you're having a great day. And with that, I'm curious to know your thoughts on NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.